So this is video 2 coming up now. And so I've got some buds up here I can deal with. I've got the normal green going on here, and also some green gold. They're very pretty, just on their own. But then they've got more shape to them. And that one's got a little bit of pink going on. Right. Two tiny little buds here. Comes that piece of music again. I don't know how it manages to... I start this thing in a different place every week, and every time I turn it on I seem to hear this. Perhaps it's on there more than once. Right, it's all starting to take shape now, and the little flowers are coming together more with all their different little bits and pieces and bits of character happening. Why not allow the green to float away a little bit too? Right, so let's pop some greenery in. So again, I've got my little pot of aureolin and Windsor blue red shade, which I can vary in tones and colour so that I get variety here. So I'm quickly just going to pop these in, working in the direction that I see the markings in the leaf. They're all shapes and sizes, lots of different tones in there. Some have got more yellow in than others. So I'm going to keep these quite loose. Letting that float away. So there's some wet paper there which actually creates nice marks when you're painting on the top. You don't want it to be wet everywhere, but in places it's really quite nice to work on the wet paper. You can bring that shape up a little bit more later if necessary. But this is the area that I want to keep a little bit more precise with the leaves. But I'm not going to use very deep colours within the leaves because I want the emphasis to be still down here on the flowers. We'll give the leaves more attention in the autumn again, which probably will be upon us before we know where we are. The way the weather is at the minute. But I'm getting lots of variety of green going on here, which I intend to have. And to keep it nice and light and loose. And we'll see what we've got when it's dry. Keeping lots of light in the leaves as well, for shiny bits. So whether I'll have to get the hairdryer out again or not, I don't know, but 2 little buds there. Right, I'm going to let that dry, see if it needs anything else a bit later, but I'm going to work on these stamens now. Let's see what sort of a difference that's going to make. Oh, there's its long one. Right, okay, so not too wet a brush, and if you're using that sword brush, get yourself a piece of tissue and make sure you keep that part of it not too wet because it will drip down if you're not careful. Right, well these should be able to be done in more or less one stroke. But because it's a textured paper, sometimes you'll get stopping and starting, which is fine because it just looks like there's some light on it. And so this is the main one, and I'm going to bring it right down there. And then it's going to start giving the whole flower a little bit of movement. Right, then on the little tips, I think I'm going to mix some of the purple with the madder. No, burnt umber, I mean. And the anthers on the smaller stamens are in fact smaller altogether, but this one is really quite strong before it dies off. It's quite big. Right, this is behind this one. It comes right down here from up there. Giving some perspective, hopefully. You can always drop a little touch of water back onto those. That will soften them quite nicely and give a little bit of sort of shape and texture to them as they dry. Three altogether there. A little touch of water back on. Right. I'm actually going to be brave and let that one go a little bit. See what happens. That one's floated in the water, so I'll just soften it off a bit. Okay. Good. Well, they don't look too bad, I don't think. I think there's one that's looking a bit dodgy. So get that brush going on that. It looks a bit too heavy, I think. So change that up before it dried. Right, okay. So I'm just going to dry it and then see if there's anything else I need to do. Okay, so what do we think? I think this needs to be glazed up just a little bit more. This side of this particular fuchsia here, because there's rather too much contrast between that one and that one. I didn't want the fading away to happen until we get to this kind of area. So I've just brought that up a little bit. So, as I said, lots of different techniques going on in here today, and thinking a lot about the perspective as well, which is quite important, really. So this is just finishing off, but be very, very careful not to overdo this, because otherwise you're going to end up overworking your picture, and there's no going back then if you do that. Remember, it is a loose and free picture with the little blendings going on into the background. So we're not looking at detail particularly, and we're just painting freely and nice and loosely. I could bring up some more of the little leaves and things, but actually I don't mind them. And I think, as I said, there's a big danger here of turning it into something else. And I quite like the freedom and the looseness and some of the marks that the actual water has made for me within my painting. So I'm going to leave it. Okay, so I hope you have a go. Hope you find some fuchsias. And maybe, if you don't want to do anything quite as complicated and as full as that, you could maybe create a little smaller one. What I would really like to do is to pick all some of my fuchsias out of the garden, and paint lots of them in maybe a smaller way. Maybe that's something you could think about doing. But as I say, it doesn't have to be, you know, a full-blown picture like that. You can just cut it down, have a little practice first, and create something that isn't quite so full on. But I quite like the cascading effect that you get with fuchsias, and that's really what I was aiming for. So I hope you like it, and I hope you'll have a go. And next week I'm going to paint loosely again on top of an already painted background, which some of you have probably done before, but we can always make it more difficult for ourselves and give ourselves a little bit more of a challenge. At the same time, for those who haven't done it before, we can keep it simple. So that's what will be going on next week. Okay, take care then, have a lovely week, and see you next Monday.